Being on exec requires at least 3 meetings a week, which has been a huge time commitment. You normally have the site leader meetings on Monday nights, then your exec meetings with all of exec, but then you also have your one-on-one meeting with either Nikki or Ross.
So that's already 3.5 hours of meetings, but you also have to prep for those.
I'd be lying if I said you aren't going to be really, really busy all the time, but it's a good kind of busy.
I'd say really the hardest part with the time commitment is kind of things that come up unexpectedly. You kind of have to always be ready to rearrange your schedule when you're on exec to get things done.
Part of the job of the exec coordinator is to create a vision for the organization. Like, where do we want to go? Why do we want to go there? And how can we get there?
My position as outreach coordinator involves a service learning component as well as a marketing component. So it's kind of like you're speaking as impact to the rest of the UGA campus. As well, the service learning component is the other second half of this. So that's not only doing things outside the arches and also the reflection meetings, but also making sure that site leaders are coming to these service events and you're really giving the service part of it to impact for site leaders throughout the year. And then also part of the position is being the liaison to VUGA. So that is, you meet once a month with the VUGA body and represent impact in that forum.
So my position was the participant coordinator, and for my job I was responsible for taking all the applications, sorting them, and putting people on trips. But then also after the first all-participant meeting, which we planned, I was responsible for making sure that the participants stayed up to date with deadlines and people dropping trips and people getting re-added. And that was a throughout the year-long process. I've been responsible for the different all-participant meetings that we've had throughout the year, but then also just mainly the communication between the participants and our organization.
So what does being the site leader coordinator involve? I think for the big picture, it's 2 major things. You plan retreats and you plan the departures for winter and spring break. The retreats include the very first retreat that the site leaders will go on, the fall retreat, and then with the executive coordinator you plan the winter break retreat for site leaders and exec. Okay, so that's for the big picture. As for weekly commitments, site leader coordinator, I've been in charge of creating the weekly meeting agendas, and that means getting the lesson time set, coordinating with the rest of the exec board to see what should be addressed in a meeting, how long it takes, and then any announcements or information needs to be relayed to the site leaders in general. So that's a weekly look at my position.
Part of my position is setting up the calendar for the year, the entire calendar including meetings, all trip celebration. I have to create meeting itineraries for the exec.
So my position's pretty good because I can really spread things out throughout the year. I don't really have any crunch times for the most part, except for kind of right before the trips with alumni getting those gifts. But most of the things are kind of protocol based, so I can kind of look at the budget protocol and see what needs to be changed, what can be made more efficient. For extra time commitment, I guess mine would be just every now and then I would have to meet with the Alumni Association and talk about the protocol and talk about how we were doing that, and then just revising both of those protocols. And then something I kind of took on this year was just making the one-on-one documents more efficient, and that was just something I recognized and kind of added. So I think the greatest part about exec is that you impact so many people. In the end, you have an impact on close to 400 people's lives.
You should be on exec because it's a completely different experience from a site leader. I know that it's been the biggest learning curve that I've had during college, especially in an organizational setting. It's serving a greater cause, so it's serving all of impact and serving all these participants versus just one trip. And so that's a really incredible thing to think about.
Why should someone want to be on exec? Is if they really want to give back to the organization and impact itself. If you feel like you as a person can help impact grow and impact more people, I think being on an exec is the right way for you.
And you also get the chance to serve other leaders. On your trip, as a site leader, you're serving participants and you're serving your service sites, but as an exec member, you are serving these other leaders that you get to watch for a year as they grow, and I can't explain the feeling. You're just like a proud parent at the end, and it's a great sensation.
Why someone should want to be on exec? It's you're shaping the organization as a whole, not just your one trip, which has an impact on all people involved at all levels, from the participants to the site leaders and to you yourself on exec. Part of what we did on exec that was really exciting this year is get to add new trips and get to add new focuses. And I think that by adding human rights, human trafficking, LGBTQ awareness, and animal advocacy, we really put our own stamp on organization and helped it reach out to other populations of students that might not have participated before, but also of communities that we served. We definitely expanded that. So I think
my experience on exec has been transformative because I've learned the most out of my 3 years in college during this
My
year.
experience on exec has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my college experience because of the people that I've been able to serve with. I think this year on exec, my experience has also been very demanding, and that's been because of trying to balance impact exec with the responsibilities that I owed my site leaders, with responsibilities to classes, but it's not something I would have traded for the world.
my experience on exec has been very transformational because I've learned a lot about leadership and how to be a better leader. I think it's also been transformational because I have to know about all of the focuses and not just one focus that I'm leading a trip for. So you really learn so much about all different aspects of social justice.
The best part about being on exec is just the discussions in general. It's just amazing to hear other people's perspectives and think about things that I've never thought about before. That's been great this year.
So the best part of being on exec, again, it's that close-knit group that you get to work with, and you get to really see the evolution of a program. You get to see your ideas play out, you get to see that progress that site leaders make, and the amazing things that they get to do.
The most challenging part of exec for me as outreach coordinator has been knowing that the participant base and all of the people that we get to go on trips is based on the work that I do towards the beginning of the year, and knowing that the success that this position can have is going to determine how successful our trips can go. So, I mean, that was something that weighed on my mind
The
a
most
lot.
challenging aspect of being on exec is the time commitment. Being in a lot of classes was really hard, trying to make sure that you're completely present in meetings when you might have a big test the next day or
So I'd
something.
say the most challenging part about being on the exec board is confronting your friends. You get really close to these people, and sometimes you have to approach them with challenges they're facing and kind of put them on the spot and work with them to make it through those challenges.
Being a primary contact for winter break is completely different for spring break, at least for me. For winter break, you only are going to have 1 or 2 trips versus in spring break you might have 3 or 4. So being a contact for both of those entails talking to the trips every day and checking up on them, making sure, not only checking up on them, but being a resource for them.
For me,
to
that was
talk.
a lot harder than I originally thought. I thought, oh, I'll be able to, go do whatever. But really, I had to have my phone with me at all times. I had to make sure it was charged, and I had to answer calls at 4 in the morning, which I didn't really anticipate.
I think one surprising thing that people don't know about exec is it's not this huge huge task that is completely impossible.
So when I was a site leader, I never really saw myself as an exec member. I thought they were incredible people that I wouldn't be able to live up to all the things they had done and all they had accomplished that year. So the surprising thing about exec is, from where you start as an exec member to where you end is a completely different place. You really grow a lot throughout the entire year.
One common misconception about exec is that your main job is your coordinator position. It's like I would be participant coordinator. And I feel like the bigger part of being on exec is actually being part of the executive board rather than your specific position. And that you're really working as a team with the other members on exec to create the best organization impact can possibly be.
I think a common misconception about exec is that we don't have fun. So in meetings we can be very serious, but we love to have fun, and we can have fun with each other, and we do have a lot of fun. And I think that's like one of the best parts about exec. You find new friends and you get closer and you have fun.
So common misconception about exec. I know when I was a site leader, I thought that all the executive members were kind of in charge of the same things. I knew they had specific roles, but I wasn't entirely sure of what those roles were. But as a part of the executive board, you learn that everyone has their very specific jobs, their specific projects that they work on, and essentially like the area where they specialize, but also the fact that everyone else helps.
If you're considering applying for exec, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone who is just doing it because it's a step up on the ladder within Impact. So if you think that going from participant to site leader means that you should go to exec next, that's not really how that works. It's if you think you're ready to serve Impact as an entire whole, and you think that you can take on a responsibility, and you think you're capable of doing one of the jobs within exec as well as it can be done, and you're going to challenge yourself to do that, then that's maybe something that you want to take on. But if you're someone who gets a lot more out of the trips versus providing that opportunity for others, then by all means apply for site leader again and make that your experience, because that's just as important to Impact.
If you are too busy, if you have other commitments that won't allow you to be readily available, to have the time to commit to this position, because they are very important positions and it will take up a lot of your time.
Please apply for exec if you have a huge passion for Impact and you want to serve it on a different level, and you think that you're capable of leading a group of 50 student leaders.
So I never thought that I would apply for exec until literally the night before applications were due.
If you don't think you're ready, but you want to still apply for exec, talk to an exec member and make sure that this is something that you're ready to apply for.
So I was watching a leadership talk one time, and it was the Evernote. Is that the app? Evernote CEO, and he was talking about just like being successful. And one of the things he said was, to be successful, always surround yourself by people smarter than you are. And I think being on the executive board, that's what it's been for me. I felt like I was always surrounded by people smarter than me, and I think anyone on the executive board is going to feel that way because it's incredible people on the board. So that's been a great experience.
I think that I have grown so much as a person throughout being an Impact, from our own thinking outside the arches to the relationships that I've built with the other exec members. I have become so much more of the person that I want to be when I leave college because of my experience on the executive board.